Hello everyone, my name is Zach Ariel, and today I'll be presenting a research article called Association Between the Timing of Childhood Adversity and Epigenetic Patterns Across Childhood and Adolescence. Findings from the Avalon Longitudinal Study of Parents and Children, or ALSPAC. The article is written by Alexandra Lucier and numerous colleagues and was published in the Lancet Child and Adolescent Health in 2023, which is one of the world's leading peer-reviewed medical journals. This study explores something really interesting. Can stressful experiences during childhood actually change how our genes work later in life? To understand this study, it's important to know that our DNA doesn't usually change, but scientists have discovered that our environment can influence how our genes are turned on or off. This process is called DNA methylation, and is part of a field known as epigenetics. Think of your DNA like an instruction manual. DNA methylation doesn't rewrite the instructions. It places little sticky notes on certain pages telling your body which instructions to use and which to ignore. The researchers wanted to answer one main question: does experiencing adversity during certain ages of childhood have greater biological impact than at other ages? They also wanted to know if these biological changes lasted into adolescence or changed over time. To answer these questions, the researchers used data from the ALSPAC study, which followed children in the UK from birth through adolescence. The study included more than 14,000 children, but the final analysis included between 609 and 665 participants, depending on the specific adversity being studied. The researchers collected DNA samples at birth, age 7, and age 15. Throughout the childhood, they also collected information about 7 different kinds of adversity, including physical or emotional abuse, family instability, financial hardship, living in a one-parent household, neighborhood disadvantage, maternal mental health problems, and sexual or physical abuse. As you can see on the timeline, the researchers tracked these experiences throughout childhood while measuring DNA methylation at 3 important ages. The result was fascinating. The researchers discovered that childhood adversity was associated with measurable changes in DNA methylation. However, not every age affected children equally. The strongest biological effects occurred when adversity happened between ages 3 and 5. Another surprising finding was that some DNA changes didn't appear until adolescence. Even though the stressful experiences had happened earlier in life, this suggests that early childhood experiences can leave biological effects that may not become visible until much later in life. The researchers also repeated parts of their study using additional groups of participants and found many similar results, which increases confidence in their findings. There were several strengths to this study. First, it was published in the Lancet Child and Adolescent Health, which is a highly respected peer-reviewed journal. This means experts carefully evaluated the research before it was published. Second, was a longitudinal study, meaning the research followed the same children over many years instead of studying them only once. Finally, they used advanced laboratory technology to examine over 485,000 DNA methylation sites, making their measurements extremely detailed and reliable. Overall, these strengths make the findings more trustworthy. Even strong studies can have limitations. One weakness was that most participants were from the European backgrounds, so the findings may not apply equally to people from different racial or ethnic groups. Another limitation is that childhood adversity was mainly measured using questionnaires completed by children's mothers. Because people may forget events or choose not to report sensitive experiences, some adversity may have been underreported. Finally, this was an observational study, meaning researchers observed what naturally happened instead of conducting an experiment. Because of this, they found an association between childhood adversity and DNA methylation, but they cannot say that adversity directly causes biological changes. Other environmental and genetic factors may have also influenced the results. I think this study is important because it helps explain why childhood experiences can affect health many years later. If researchers can better understand how adversity influences biology, doctors and psychologists may eventually be able to identify children who are at higher risk for a mental or physical health problem much earlier. That could lead to earlier interventions and better support for vulnerable children. The study also reminds us that creating safe and supportive environments during childhood can have lifelong benefits. To conclude, this study showed that childhood adversity may influence DNA methylation, which is one way our environment can affect our genes' function. The researchers found that the period between ages 3 and 5 appears to be especially sensitive, and some biological changes may not become visible until adolescence. Although more research is still needed, especially with the more diverse populations. This study provides important evidence that early childhood experiences may have lasting biological effects. Thank you for watching my presentation, and I hope you found it interesting and learned something new about how childhood experiences can shape our health later in life.